Hi, everyone, and welcome once again to another interview from Israel. Today, we are privileged to have with us David Rubin, who is the former mayor of Shiloh community and is also the head of the Shiloh Children's Fund in Israel. We have visited, if you've been on our tours, several times to the school in Shiloh, and I want David to tell us what's happening with the children and with the school during these days of the war in Israel with Hamas. David, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Gary. It's good to be with you. It's good to see you again. I wish that the circumstances were better. We in Israel are in a crisis situation and have been for about going on 2 months. We went through a national trauma on October 7th. On October 7th, when there was a massacre carried out by the Hamas Islamic terrorist organization. They invaded many communities in the south of Israel, as well as several army bases. They killed 1,200 civilians. Didn't just murder them, they didn't just slaughter them, but they brutally slaughtered them. They chopped off heads of babies. They burned children alive. They slaughtered and tortured before slaughtering elderly people. I'm sorry for being so graphic, but it needs to be stated. And I state it every time that I've been interviewed in the past 2 months because it needs to be said. It needs to be heard.
Yes.
Now, I know that, Gary, I know that you know because you've visited me here in Israel, in Shiloh. I know that you know that I was wounded in a terrorist attack 20 years ago, along with my 3-year-old son who was shot in the head.
Yes.
And after that terror attack, we realized that there was deep psychological trauma in our son. And we tried to think, okay, what can we do? You know, he came home from the hospital several weeks later. And yes, thank God he survived the attack physically. And the bullet missed his brain stem by 1 millimeter, went through his head, through his neck, and missed his brain stem. He survived the attack. But there was deep emotional trauma. And how do you deal with trauma in a 3-year-old? How do you cope with that trauma? How do you heal it? We had no idea. So that was 3.5 weeks after the attack and coming home from the hospital. About 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my living room, and he was on the other side of the living room, sitting in this big toy car that we had. And he was sitting in the car, and he had 2 dolls in the car with him, 2 of his sister's dolls. And he picked up one of them, and he said, this is the Abba. This is the father, the dad. He has a hole in his leg. Now, indeed I did. I was shot in the leg during that terror attack when we were both wounded. And then he picked up the other doll and he said, this is the little baby. He was shot in the head. Now, you know, I just, my eyes filled with tears at that moment because I realized, number one, this was the first time that he had expressed verbally anything about the terror attack, and it was almost 6 weeks later. I also realized that there was a way to heal trauma in young children, that you have to use some form of role play or play therapy. And that had become clear to me. And that at that moment, I realized that there was a mission that I was given from this attack, from our miraculous survival. And I didn't mention that, after the bullets hit, the car wasn't starting; it was dead. And the bullets were
It was a
flying.
miracle. It was a miracle you got out of there.
So I just realized, here there's a mission. Everything happens for a good reason. We know that bad things happen to good people, but we're supposed to do something with it. We're supposed to make good come out of the evil. So I decided at that moment that I was going to start what would eventually become the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund for the purpose of healing the trauma of the terror victim children and hopefully restoring some of the lost innocence of childhood to their lives. Jumping ahead 20 years, we have several thousand children. We have the main campus where I know you were, which at this point has one school and a formal therapy center and several formal therapy stations. And then we have another campus that was recently finished where we have another school, a girls' school, and we have therapeutic programming there as well. It's just down the road from the main campus.
Right.
And we also have the horse farm where we do therapeutic horseback riding. So we use art therapy and music therapy and small animals and horse therapy, and we also have dog therapy and what else? Multisensory safe room therapy, horticulture therapy, that's a new one, and sports therapy. And all of these therapies are used as intermediaries because a child is not like an adult. An adult can go and sit with a therapist even after a trauma of a terror attack, and they usually can talk it out and talk it through and work through it over time. Children aren't like that. Children bury it inside, and they're very, very closed verbally because they can't express the trauma that they feel inside. And that's the difference. So they need these intermediaries, whether it's art or music or animals or any of the others that I've mentioned. So that's what we do with children, and it's blended together with the faith-based educational program, where the children start their day with prayer and they learn Bible and they deal with a lot of the issues of God and His relationship to us. So that's what we do now. When that massacre happened near Gaza on October 7th, we were immediately contacted by the Defense Ministry, by Israel's, the equivalent of the Defense Department in the United States. And they wanted to, number one, learn from our expertise, but also to use our therapists because they were busy evacuating families to the center of the country from the Gaza region. And they were desperate to provide not just for the physical needs of these families, but also for the psychological needs. And the psychological trauma in those families is wow. It's off the charts. So we had to send out therapists. Right? We had to go from being mostly a therapy center based in Shiloh in Samaria to being a therapy center that's also based in Samaria, but that has mobile therapists that go out into the field to go to those families and to treat them several times a week So we're really stretched far and wide, and we're also financially stretched far and wide because it has not been easy. We've been working 24/7 since that massacre. So if I could, Gary, I just want to encourage people out there, your viewers and listeners, who I'm sure understand what I'm talking about, what Israel is going through. They may not know it firsthand for sure, but I'm sure that their hearts are with Israel at this time. So I want to give them an opportunity to partner with us by going to israelchildren.org. Okay, we have this simplified URL. It makes it easy for people to remember, but I suggest they write it down, israelchildren.org.
Good. Yeah, we'll try to put that on the screen too when we edit the video. Yeah, the people need to know what a tremendous job that you do and what a tremendous staff you have. I've been there several times, met with them, toured the facilities, watched them in action, and you have some of the greatest professionals in all of Israel. So I can see why the government would immediately contact you to assist them in what they're now facing. Because seriously, if people can in any way help, support during this time, it is well worth it. I mean, you're touching children's lives that have literally been turned upside down in this situation, and they are either going to find help or they are going to be scarred for life. And it's so important that the ones that are hearing this get the vision and the burden for the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund and the activities that are going on there. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's just so necessary that people feel this burden.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. Yep, I know that you have stood with us, and so I hope that many more people will stand with us after hearing this message. Now, I just want to point out to people that what's happening in Gaza today, it didn't just happen out of a vacuum. That's the only thing that I agree with about, what the Secretary General of the anti-Semitic UN said, that this massacre didn't happen in a vacuum. Of course it didn't happen in a vacuum. It was done already in 1929,
right,
in several cities of Israel, very
especially
similar
Hebron.
massacres. In the city of Hebron, for example, where 68 people were slaughtered, and similar things, heads chopped off, women raped, unborn babies torn out of the wombs of their pregnant mothers. I mean, such savagery that's unimaginable to anyone in the Western world. But that's already happened. We've been in this movie before. We just haven't been in this movie to this extent, where 1,200 people have been slaughtered and thousands others wounded and families torn apart, and many, many thousands traumatized for life. So, that we just have to be standing with these children in this time. One of the things that we do here, and I don't know if you had a chance to witness it when you visited, because I know that I was in the States on a speaking tour at that time, and you had a very good substitute for me on that tour, but I wasn't with you. But one of the things that we've been doing a lot of in the last year is whole family therapy.
Yes.
Because we know that our research has shown and our experience has shown that whole families are traumatized. When one person is traumatized in the family, the entire family suffers. It's like a chain reaction, and I've seen that in my own family with all of my children. But I know that it happens in many families. So one of the things that we've been doing is whole family therapy, and we've been doing that with the massacre victims. The problem is that many of these families aren't whole families anymore,
Right.
because there's either a parent or a child who's being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza, or there's or there are members of the family that have been wounded or that have been murdered. The families are not so whole anymore, and we have to work with what we have and help to heal them and help them to move on with their lives eventually. It's going to be a very, very difficult process.
It's going to be a long road ahead. And I did have an opportunity while there to witness some of the family therapy that was happening, and actually talked to one of the mothers, and she so expressed how this has changed their life, their marriage, as well as helping the children. And so you're right, it was part of probably my greatest takeaway on this last visit was seeing the impact of going into this whole family therapy. It's very, very important.
Yep. So, I just like to point out to people that I don't know how things are going to turn out in this war. I know that if we continue, then we're going to win. We're going to win decisively, hopefully, because if we don't win decisively, then the whole world is going to suffer. The whole free world is going to suffer. We know what Hamas is. We know that it's at least as bad as ISIS. And we've seen on the ground what they do. And if they are not soundly defeated and wiped out completely off the map, then they are going to be exporting their revolution. Okay, just like Iran,
Yes.
who finances them. They're going to be exporting the Islamic revolution around the world, and they view the United States as the great Satan.
Right.
So it's important to remember that. And it's also important to remember that it's not only Hamas. There are other terrorist organizations that are just as extreme. The Fatah terrorist organization of the Palestinian Authority, they pay terrorists salaries every month if they kill or wound an Israeli. And they continue those payments for their entire lives. So what I ask people is not to be naive, to understand that we're dealing with an evil. I know these days in the postmodern world, you're not supposed to talk about good and evil. But there is something called evil. And
Yes.
and we as the good people need to counter it. We need to counter it the best that we can by standing up to it. And I believe that we are at a time like during World War II.
Yes.
When the Allies had to stand up. Winston Churchill, who I believe was a great leader, he said we have to stand up. We have to stand up against evil. We have to just go forward to victory and defeat the evil. And there is a
Yes.
time when that needs to be done, and now is that
Well,
time. And but
and
on
we
the
know as
yep,
go ahead. I'm
I was
sorry.
just going to say, but obviously that's for the Israeli government to do, and for other world leaders to hopefully stand with Israel in that task, and stand behind Israel and support Israel in that. But that's for the politicians and that's for the military people. The average person, the average man or woman in the street who's sitting at home and is concerned about everything going on over here, the best way for them is through the grassroots.
Yes.
By going to our website, by going to israelchildren.org and donating. In fact, as soon as this, as soon as we're finished, as soon as this broadcast is finished, it's the simplest thing. You just click on that link, israelchildren.org, and it takes you to a page where you can donate. And there's nothing that we need more at this time, because we're going ahead and we're providing the services no matter what. Of course, we have to pay the therapists afterwards. But we're in a crisis situation. When you're in a crisis situation, you can't turn people away.
Yes. Well, I want to just go back to what you were talking about with the reality of this situation, the reality of the existence of evil. This is pure evil manifesting right before our eyes in our generation, and it is now our turn to step up in many, many ways. Giving is a great way to do it because the need is so tremendous. And what's wonderful is that we do have the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, and we do have David Rubin, and we have the staff, and we have facilities, and it's not like we're scrambling to start from scratch or below zero. There is a tremendous established ability there in Shiloh to help with this situation nationally and internationally. And I just think it is important that we, especially in America, I know we've experienced 9/11, but it's even that was not as in-your-face brutal as what really has transpired in Israel on October the 7th. And this goes beyond the pale of what is even possible for humans to do. It has to be someone that is absolutely motivated by the forces of evil. And so as believers and as those who, read the scriptures and look to have a life in God, we realize this is going to be an ongoing battle, and we need to be a part of it. We need to speak up. One of the things I wish people would also do is to get a hold of your book. There's also a movie that has been made from your book, which is now available on YouTube. And I will put something on our website where people can find a link to your YouTube movie. But can you give us the title of the book and tell people how they can get a hold of your book? I think it's very important.
Sure. Okay. Well, I've already given out the information about the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund and helping traumatized children by going to israelchildren.org. So as far as my book is concerned, and it's actually my 7th book, but it's the most recent. It's called Confronting Radicals: What America Can Learn from Israel. And yes, it has been made into a movie, into a film documentary, and it's online. People can find the book Confronting Radicals: What America Can Learn from Israel by going to my website, which is davidrubinisrael.com. That's David Rubin. Rubin is spelled Rubin. DavidRubinIsrael.com. And they can order it from there. There's a link to Amazon. They can get it in other places as well, but that's just an easy way to get to it. And you can also read about my other books on that website, DavidRubinIsrael.com, and you can purchase them as well. And then there's the film, and you can see the film by just going directly to confrontingradicals.com. So that's a third website for you, confrontingradicals.com, and you can see the trailer, and you can also see the full film on that website, confrontingradicals.com.
Yes, very, very important. And I really encourage everybody to get involved. Part of this is educating ourselves, knowing and understanding. And this book is for America. America needs to be educated on the truth behind the Palestinian issue, and as well as the radical issue, and be able to confront it. And we need to be prepared to deal with it, because this is coming to our, not backyard, it is coming to our front yard. And like you say, we are the great Satan, and Christians as believers, as well as Jews who are believers, are a main target besides Israel and next to Israel. So this is not going to go away. This is not some Middle Eastern problem. This is not some Israel problem. This is all of our problem. And I just encourage everyone, please get involved in every way you can, including going to the website and donating to the Children's Fund. If you can't remember that, we'll put it on the screen. You can go to Hargrave Ministries. You can donate directly through our website as well, because this is something that we are actively raising funds for at this time. So,
well, it's actually very. I think they can remember it. It's IsraelChildren.org. Can't get more simple than that.
It's pretty easy.
So,
well, David, I appreciate
you
giving me the time and giving us all the time. I don't know if you have any last words before we close.
Well, I'll just say this. We have some great challenges ahead of us, not just us here in Israel, but both of our houses. We're being confronted by the radicals of Islam. We're being confronted by the radical secular left. And those two forces, both of which are quite extreme, are looking to bring down both of our houses.
Yes.
They're trying to destroy Israel. They're trying to destroy the United States of America, and they are doing it in the most brutal way in order to destroy Judeo-Christian civilization. Some people have said to me, well, why would radical Muslims and radical secularists be working together, be in collusion? It makes no sense because they're so different. Well, their long-term goals are very different, but their short-term goals are to bring down Judeo-Christian civilization, to bring down the traditional family, to destroy the traditional family, to destroy a value-based education system, to destroy Judaism and Christianity and just wipe it off the map. That is their goal. And they both have that goal, the radical secular left and the radical Muslims. So it doesn't mean that there's nobody on the left who's rational and reasonable, and it doesn't mean that there are no Muslims who are rational and reasonable. But it does mean that those two radical poles are looking to destroy everyone in the center. And we need to be standing up, and we need to be standing together in these times.
Amen and amen to that. And David, please know that our prayers are with you, with your family, your children, and with all of Israel, certainly with the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund and the school there. And I just want to go back to one thing that you brought up earlier, and that was our greatest tour that we had of your facility was the last one we had, which was done by your wife because you were traveling. And she did a great job, and everybody laughs about the fact that, well, we don't need David anymore if he's not available. We'll just ask for his wife to give us the tour. So thank her again from
I will
me
tell
and
her
for
that.
everybody that was with us.
Yeah, she'll be happy to hear that.
It was a wonderful time. She's a wonderful woman and a wonderful woman of God. And thank you so much for all of your hospitality and everything that you've done in the times that we've had together. I very, very much appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And God bless you, and God bless all of your listeners, all of your viewers.